So poetry is not my favorite thing to write. I'm actually more of an informational writer. So in this video, we are going to tackle 3 ways to teach poetry and make it fun even if it's not your thing. If you have not subscribed yet to my channel, make sure that you click the subscribe below, make sure you turn on the notification icon and give me a thumbs up for this video. I'm going to be bringing you not only free training, but free resources for 3rd through 5th grade teachers week after week, and I would love for you to get access to all of those new videos. So, poetry, not always easy to teach, especially to students in 4th and 5th grade, especially when you're dealing with lots of different types of poems that have confusing sets of rules. So we're really going to focus on how to break down those rules and how to make it easy for students and also make it easy for you to understand and to write. So my first tip is to use engaging examples with your students. So there's a lot of poems in textbooks and workbooks and online that maybe aren't going to be relevant to your students. So you want to use poems that your students understand. You don't want to throw something at them that is such an old poem that even you don't understand it. You want to start with things that are silly and fun and engaging. I have a few favorite poetry books and I'm going to link those in the description below, but you can definitely check out a few of those. You can also just go to your local library and there's lots of poetry books for kids. Check out the ones that have the best examples of the types of poetry that you're looking to teach your students. Bring those into the classroom and immerse your students in those poems. You want poetry to be all over your classroom while you're teaching poetry and afterwards too. Again, it might not be your favorite, but the more of it that's in the classroom, the more you and your students will engage with it. If you're interested in having anchor charts to help illustrate the different types of writing and have a great example of each type of writing that's really engaging for your students, I'm linking a free resource in the description. This is the free resource I'm going to be giving to you as a part of this video. Definitely go to the description after you finish watching this video and download it. But this resource includes all the different types of poems that we teach in the upper elementary grades. And we not only use really engaging pictures, but we use fun poems and we include the rules. So something like this as an anchor chart to use with your students and to put in your classroom is a great way to not only catch their eye, but immerse them in this poetry experience and also focus on those key rules for the different types of poems. Overall, learning about the different types of poems is really just about looking for the patterns and rules that go with them. So that is a lot of practice that it takes. So you definitely cannot just teach poetry in a couple days. It's going to be something that you're going to do for a while. That leads to tip number 2, which is annotate the poem. So give your students a lot of examples that they can write on. So reading poems together are great, but you need to have some where students can actually observe something and write it down. They can label syllables, they can label the number of lines, the rhyming words, anything they notice about the poem. And they might notice more than what the actual rules are, and that's okay. But we want to really have our students looking deeply at the structure of the poem in order to identify what the type of poem is and what rules go with that type. So the anchor charts you're getting in this free resource also can be printed small. They can be printed as booklets or 2 to a page. I like to print them 2 to a page, and then I have students cut them out after they annotate and paste them in their notes. So as they're annotating, they're really looking for patterns and rules, and you're walking them through this. So let's use this limerick poem as an example. So in this limerick poem, your students may notice it's kind of silly, right? They also should notice that there are 5 lines. The 1st, 2nd, and 5th rhyme and have 7 to 10 syllables. Now, this is kind of a complicated structure, right? Because also the 3rd and 4th lines rhyme and contain 5 to 7 syllables. So these patterns are very complicated, especially with a limerick. So noticing this is going to be a little tricky for your students. You're going to walk them through it, have them annotate it, and have them do multiple examples. And I like to do this by introducing one type of poem each day, but then spending a few days on multiple types of poems and comparing and contrasting the types of poems. And that makes it a lot easier for students to not just know one really well one day and forget it the next, but to really be able to work with multiple types of poems and know how to identify the type of poem that they're seeing. My third tip is to do a collaborative poem. So as your students are starting to write these poems, we're going to work on that together. We want to start doing this together so that they know the process of here is how we use these rules, we come up with ideas, and we start to write a poem with the structure, with our ideas. What's the whole process? If we don't do one as a group, we're basically just throwing our students in without a process, and a lot of times they don't follow the rules or they get really stuck. I have a hard time writing poetry, so I can only imagine my third, fourth, or fifth graders how they feel about writing a poem when they've never written this type of poem before. And so we feel pretty similarly. So it's really important to do that collaborative poem as a group, and that way your students know the process. And then as they're more comfortable, you can move into having students do this in small groups or with a partner, and then eventually you can have them work independently. And I know this sounds like a lot of time to spend on poetry because you're working on this every single day for almost 2 weeks if you really add all of these activities together. But I think that poetry is something that you should spend time on. Not only is it getting really great writing skills for your students, descriptive writing, just formatting, and all of the things that go along with teaching a writing unit in general, but they're also getting these amazing reading skills, and they're able to actually look at a poem and identify the rules and the patterns and have opinions on them. So these are all a lot of standards that poetry actually covers. So those are my 3 tips for teaching poetry. Even if you're not in love with it, definitely go to the description, click on the link for the free resource to get these anchor charts for your classroom. Print them 2 to a page if you want to use them in notebooks, or print them the regular size and you can put them on your bulletin board, or you can share them with your students in another way. If you're new, again, please don't forget to subscribe before you leave so that you won't miss my next video and free resource.